if you don't pitch this well, they will sign with somebody else for $3,000 more, because these people are so in a situation where it's like money talks. I don't care. You can be Grant Cardone. Somebody could walk in behind them. If they have a better okay pitch, but are offering $5,000 more, and you don't combat the things in that contract and what they're going to say in your pitch, they'll sign with somebody else.
You've mentioned that people only see the home runs, not the risk or the knowledge or the grind behind them. What's the math look like on those low ball offers that get so much criticism?
Well, just like that one for that $100,000 one we netted, is like once we bought it, because like she couldn't get access to the bank, and we actually got the bank to comply with the information, and we found out that bank note was only $18,000. Well, it took our spread when we weren't thinking we were going to be in there, but we had to be in the ownership position in order to get the bank to comply, and that's when our profit jumped massively.
John, you're here because we do a similar breed of real estate, maybe some ways different or not, but we got to know each other, gosh, been half a dozen years, maybe longer.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I was trying to think about this the other day. Of like, I got into real estate probably around like 2015, but like, I was like, I knew of you or heard of you, like even back in those days, some of the stuff, because like the investor community seems real big, but it's not very big of people that are actually active, doing things consistently and actually giving this a like full faith effort and not just doing it part-time. So like you were very active, I was very active like in the groups. So like I'd always like heard of you, but I think it was through probably like Tim Macy.
Great point. So that's the reason you're here. You're in the same real estate space as I am, and you have a fun story about doing deals one way, you transition to do them another way. And that's a message that our listeners love to hear because it makes it so relatable. So that's why you're here. Welcome, John.
Well, appreciate being here, man.
So tell the folks that are listening, who's John Barr and what got John Barr into the real estate space from being a little kiddo? Who is that?
Oh, man.
Who's that guy?
A lot of decisions that look great now, but 10 years ago when I did it, was just like, what in the am I doing?
Well, let's back up before that. Where'd you grow up?
Okay, so I'll even go back before that. I moved, I think it was like 13 or 15 times before I was in 6th grade. So like I moved a lot between like Missouri, Kansas, Michigan, Iowa, Minnesota, and then ended up in Kansas, where in 6th grade through college I was at. My father was a geologist originally, and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. Like they had like businesses and stuff that they were doing together, but he's a geologist back in like the 80s, and not very many people were, because that's when like the oil really kind of crashed. Like,
was he in petroleum?
Somewhere in that space. I don't know what the attachment was, but it was like he studied the earth and rocks, and like it wasn't a lot of money in that. So he went to med school at KU Med and actually became a doctor. And that's one reason why we moved around so a lot, is because they had me before he went into med school, but then he had his residency, so it was multiple apartments back and forth between
So you're moving a lot, and you didn't see a whole lot of Dad for a while. 10 years.
Yeah. So, and then when he went to Michigan, that's where he did his residency. My little brother was born. We're 6 years apart. And then he got his first job in Iowa from there, and we were there for a couple of years. And then my little brother actually got a form of bone cancer. And so we spent a lot of time back and forth between Rochester, Minnesota, the Mayo Clinic, and bouncing around a lot. So I would have been like 9 years old. So a lot of stuff happened in that time frame. So I spent time with my grandparents, and I became very close to my grandfather. So I'm the third, John Turner Barr the third. Cool. He was senior, Dad was junior. So I spent a lot of time.
John Turner Barr.
Turner Barr. Spent a lot of time with them. Back and forth. They lived in Kansas and then eventually in Texas.
What was Grandpa's profession?
I don't know the name. He did a lot of stuff with like old school printing back in the day. So a lot of stuff around like actual tied to like currency and like making paper and the ink that goes into that paper and like counterfeiting stuff. So I don't know exactly what it was, but
these are the big influences in your life. So that's why I'm asking.
Yeah. So it wasn't so much what he did. It was just the comfort I got, because we had so much turmoil between like my brother, my dad, like being gone a lot for work and med school.
Grandpa is a stabilizing factor.
Yeah. And he actually got lung cancer as well. And it's from like the chemicals that he was exposed to back in like the 50s, 60s and stuff, like all that kind of stuff. So he actually had a form of non-smoker's lung cancer. So with him, a lot in grandparents, and he actually died when I was 9 years old. I was no further from him.
Oh, that's like crushing.
Yeah, so like it was no further from me to that door. I was in the next room over. listening to my father try to resuscitate his father because we were down there for Thanksgiving, and my dad was giving him CPR because what happened is he fell out of the bed and actually knocked the wind out of him. And since his lungs were so full of cancer, he couldn't get his breath back. And my dad tried to resuscitate him.
Suffocated.
And he essentially suffocated and passed.
Wow. My dad had a similar thing.
Oh, really?
He ENT cancer, but he was sick one night. He was getting close to that, fell off the bed, found him. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like crushing around that time for me. And a lot of this stuff, like I've now connected the dots looking backwards because when you have traumas like that as a child, it creates a lot of safeguards for you that are good for you at the time, but later in life, they
shape you in ways that may not be great.
Yeah, but then like later in life, you're like, okay, I don't need those
anymore.
Protection mechanisms anymore. But you got to go all the way back to find those trauma points
Fix
to
them.
see and
Talk
to
through
heal
them.
them and talk through them and stuff like that. So I've discovered a lot of that in the last couple of years.
So going forward, how did those parts of your life affect you as you're moving? What are you in your teens at this point?
Yeah, so like I'm getting into my teens and stuff like that, and then my father dies in a plane crash.
What?
3 days before I turned 14 in Kansas. So we went from Iowa to Minnesota and down to Kansas, and we were going to have to move again because we were going to like a lot of these like small little towns.
Was your mom generating income?
No.
So your dad's just getting to the point where he's become a doctor, generating, and
Yep. And then that gets yanked. And thank God they had a life insurance policy because that like saved us.
Oh, wow.
For that. But it was one of those things I look at. It's like, it's very fortunate. Like it's a lot of stuff that was like, it sucked. Obviously. It's like, poor me. That's not what I'm trying to say. It's like, because of those things, I am sitting here today. So I'm very appreciative
I believe
of those
disparity
things.
and problems are the spark for a lot of successful people today. Find
100%.
you a good underdog as a kid and good probability you're going to find yourself as a successful adult.
Yeah. We worked for a lot of my dad worked for a lot of small town doctors, and they owned the practice, and my dad was secondary to it. Well, a lot of these towns couldn't support 2 doctors.
Wow.
Or 3 in the case of Minnesota or in Iowa, and he would get let go. And finally in Kansas, my mom put her foot down and was like, these kids need to grow up somewhere. I'm hitting middle school. My brother would be hitting like early elementary. She goes, we can't be bouncing around all over the place. Like these
So she
kids
puts her
need to
foot
grow up.
down, and then dad passes away. So what happens?
And then dad passes away because so his job that he got was to fly back and forth to Indian reservations and working at the hospitals up there. And so he had something called it's a gyrocopter. It's like basically looks like a helicopter on top, but like an airplane prop in the back.
Weird.
And the plane crash, they said like he either got hit by a wind shear or had a heart attack because he was overweight. And I think that's what actually did it. But the plane caught fire when it hit the ground and burned everything up. So they couldn't really like tell.
Gotcha.
But now going into like so that happens like right before I hit my freshman year of like high school. And this is one thing where like I'm very appreciative. I grew up in a town of 1,500 people. I could not do it as an adult nowadays. I'm like, I don't know what I would do in a small little town like that. It would drive me nuts. But because I was in a small little town, a lot of people like stepped up in the community to like help push me in the right direction. And like, I'm very appreciative for like my high school football coach, my high school wrestling coach, because like they got me into sports. And I'd only been there for 3 years, and I was the new kid, and I was one goofy looking kid. Dude, I had the same size head, these huge buck teeth, these huge hands, and I was like 5'2" and like 100 pounds soaking wet.
Wow.
So like I just looked very awkward.
So it sounds like growing up had a lot of like good stabilizing factors in it, but also a lot of the opposite of that. So you get towards the end of high school and you're like, where am I headed? Did you go to college?
Yeah. So I got out of, so I graduated high school, and I started working construction in high school because in small little towns, if you wanted to make money, you either worked construction or you worked on the farms. And I would kind of bounce back and forth between both. And I started working for this guy, did a concrete construction, flat work and stuff. And I was doing that during the summers. And then I ended up started like dating his daughter, who was in my class like the second year. And leaving high school, my mom was always like, "You're gonna go to college. You're gonna go to college."
Did you go?
And I did. But I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I followed her to Western Kansas to Fort Hays State University.
Is that a big one or small
No,
one?
it's small, Division II. Hays, they say like it's the last thing you see on I-70 before you hit Colorado, and it's still like 2.5 hours to Colorado. Like,
Wow.
so it's not a very big place, and it's like it was a party town.
So what'd you study?
At that time, I went in with like business.
General business.
General business.
Okay.
And then I switched it to athletic training. And I was like, oh, I like sports. Let me see if I can kind of get into that. And by the end of my freshman year, I was really just like, what am I doing with my life? I actually like partied way too hard.
It's easy to do.
Got a 1.6 GPA my first semester, all D's and a C. And I remember the time my mom, and it sticks with me, she called me crying, and she's like, I've like the whole disappointed thing, not mad. I think I was because I got put on academic probation and stuff like that, and I was like, all right, I need to get my act together, not go out Wednesday, Thursday,
Did you get
Friday.
it together?
And I got like a 3.4 GPA the next semester.
So you
like,
proved that you had it. You just had to focus.
I just had to focus and like get real and realize like, because like I didn't, in that small little town, like I didn't do like the typical thing like a lot of high schoolers did in like the small towns. It was like just drink and like do a bunch of dumb stuff.
Right.
And like I never really did that. So when I got to the college environment, I was like,
Wild.
I'm free. Like let's go. And it was like,
So when you get out of college, what direction are you headed?
well, then it led me to I had a lot of problems with like I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I took a lot of personality tests, and like construction showed up on a lot of the stuff that jobs that fit your style of personality. And
Construction labor, construction management. Or did it different?
Management. And there was a school in the opposite corner of Kansas called Pittsburgh State University that had a really good construction program. So I ended up transferring down there for my last
Got
like
it.
3.5 years of college, and I ended up like double majoring in construction management and business management. So that's where I ended up like graduating college with those degrees.
So did you go right into construction management after college?
Yeah, so like I did 3 internships. I did one in South Texas to Kiewit Offshore. They're a big oil and gas producer.
That's the first person I interviewed with, and I almost went to work there, but I'll never forget. I made a couple big mistakes in my interview. Right down there in Corpus, we went to eat at the big hotel there. Did the interview.
Like the one hotel they got.
Yeah, that one big
back
old
then.
nice one.
Yeah.
Strange. Yeah. Okay. Wow.
So Kiewit Offshore, I did an internship there, and that was
huge.
the
They're
summer
one of the largest.
Oh, dude, they turned up like during like the '08 crash. That division alone, because Kiewit's like second largest general contractor in the United States. Like they're huge. They got divisions all over the place. This was just their offshore oil and gas division, and they just built the drilling platforms that go off into the ocean.
Yep.
And that year of 2008, 9, and 10, I think it was, they turned over $100 million in straight profit to the corporate company.
So you did these couple internships, and where'd you land as the job?
So did 3 internships, like one there, one in New Orleans, and then one in Corpus Christi, or in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I interviewed, and I knew I wanted to go south. I was like, I hate the cold. I was like, I'm done with this stuff. I'm like, I'm moving south.
So where'd you land?
Here in San Antonio. I got a job with a company called ISEC Construction. They're based out of Colorado.
Is the girlfriend still with you or no?
No. I broke up with her after I left Fort Hays State University. Like, I was like, I went to the last 3 years. I was stacked.
So tell me about the job.
But it was a commercial construction company, and they did a lot of. They were a big subcontractor. They did about $300 million a year across the entire United States. They had offices all over the place, and they were opening up. They actually did a lot of work with Fort Sam when they were building that when they were building that hospital.
So at this point, though, in your mind, do you think construction management is your career? You got a job for a big company. You're thinking company man, long term. Is that where your head's at?
It was like I knew like I wouldn't say that where my head was at. That's just the way things were like going. Because like, hey, you get a career and a degree in college, and you go get yourself a good job. And at that time, like it was a good job out of college. Like, hey, I'm gonna go do this. I knew I didn't want to work for some big Fortune 500 company. I wanted something smaller.
Okay.
So I was like, I didn't want to work for some big like Kiewit or something like that because you're just a number there. Like I wanted to know the actual people and like have more of like a smaller community piece. So I came down here, and they do a lot of like installing like bathroom partitions and a bunch of just cabinetry and just a bunch of random stuff inside of buildings. They're not doing like steel erectors or concrete or anything like that. So just installing a bunch of stuff like that. So I got my first job here, and it was when they were building the Lackland Air Force Base. And it was one guy here that grew up in Bernie, and he was starting the division down here for their South Texas division, and they wanted a project engineer. So like I came down as that position when they were doing that stuff. And it was kind of funny. I always tell people, they ask like, what'd you major in? I was like, professional babysitting.
That's it. So how do you go from that place? You're new in your career. This is what you're doing. You think it's going to be your life. How do you wind up as a self-employed real estate dude?
So how it worked out is like, one, I started to realize like I was stuck behind a desk and I was watching things getting built from a computer screen. And I didn't get to be out in the field and move around a lot. I was just answering phone calls and just listening to people complain about, he stole my drill. I was like, whose name is on the freaking drill? Company's name. It's not your drill.
So construction management sounded cool, but when you got into it, you didn't love it.
I didn't at all. Like, because like I got into construction because I grew up doing flat work. I was actually working with my hands, doing concrete and like moving around. And like, I'm not a type of person that can just sit at a desk for 8 hours a day.
Sure.
And then what led me to starting to be like, you know what? Like, is there something more out there? I got my first raise from this company. I was like really trying to prove myself, and like that honeymoon phase after the first year was kind of wearing off. And then like I took on a job like in Austin. I had 2 jobs here. I was like, I'm really trying to do this, and they gave me what was equivalent of like a 10-cent an hour raise after the first year. And I was just like,
what am I gonna do with this?
That's it. I was like, whoa. I'm like, okay, like that sucks. I remember that just being like, that's worthless. Like, what are we doing here? Then what I realized I didn't like is I could see my career trajectory. It was project engineer, senior project engineer, project manager,
check this
senior
out.
Project manager.
10 cents an hour over 2,050 hours a year equates to a couple $100 a year raise.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was just like, and it might have been more than that. I just remember thinking
it's immaterial.
Like, it was just like, oh, if that's all I'm going to get, I started like adding up the percentage. Like it's going to take forever to get to like 6 figures.
Right. So how do you get into real estate?
And that's when I realized like, okay, is there something else more out there that I can go after? And that's when like I discovered like Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I read that book, which a lot of people start with. I was like, okay, real estate. And dude, you start typing in like how to get into real estate online, you just start getting bombarded with all kinds of stuff, because you got to remember, this is like, there's no like podcast, there's no like real, it's still a very underground industry. Because this is 2011, 12, 13, or like 12, 13, 14.
The same time I was kind of Googling, and you're right, there wasn't much out there. But what I find interesting is a lot of folks I talk to in this setting say the same thing. I didn't like what I was doing. I wanted more. I didn't know what to do. I went to Google. So our generation, large part of them found real estate on Google.
Yeah, they did. And it like, I was tied to construction, so it kind of moved into it. And then I found like the fixing, flipping kind of thing. And
you felt, I can do this and it doesn't look hard.
Oh yeah, because they make it not look hard. They're like, everybody can be a millionaire overnight. And like, I was a 23, 24-year-old kid, and I was like, I grew up in a small town where like, you didn't lie to people and cheat people because it was too small a community. Like everyone would know about it. And so like I was very gullible. I was the prime person for somebody to come in and take their money to teach them real estate, which is exactly what happened.
So you got some real estate education, just wasn't great.
It would have led me to where I'm at. So like, and it was most real estate education, like when it's like these big guru platforms, while the education is great, it's the network within the people that have bought into that stuff. Because it wasn't like, I was 25 years old and I spent like $1,000 to go to this 3-day program in this dude's multi-million-dollar mansion in Austin. So I go up to this thing, and
you know what? As crazy as it sounds for that ticket price and what you just said, you get to meet a lot of people. You get to go to a place that you don't get to go to.
I'm not done with where I'm going with that. How much I spent. Like that was just the entry level thing to get people there to like look at this fancy. Yeah, that was like he held like a big event, and then he would upsell these like things.
But you still put yourself in a room with a bunch of unique people in a great house, and you're like, there's more out there to life. What's going on?
100%. And like he's got his sales pitch down. Like he hasn't changed his sales pitch since that day.
It works.
And it's the exact same thing when I look at him like, that stuff doesn't work anymore, but the pitch does. Because he's like, get out a little yellow letter pad and write them a letter and mail it off. I'm like, dude, try to do that now. Like, that's not going to work out very well. But upsell at the end of that, they say it's you got 3 options for additional coaching: $25,000, $35,000, or $50,000.
That's expensive for 15 years ago.
Yeah. And I don't got that kind of money. I got a mortgage. I bought a house. Like within the first year out of college, I bought a house. And had $25,000 in student loan debt to go along with it.
You took the path that people said you should have taken, and you did the things that people feel like make them successful and stable. You bought the house.
Yeah, I bought a house. And I look at it now, I'm like, man, I wish I would have kept that thing. But I also moved people in with me. I had 2 roommates that moved with me that paid most of my mortgage.
You were house hacking before it was a thing.
Yeah, because like I had 2 roommates from college that wanted to move here, and one of them wanted to pursue UTSA for nursing. So
That's
like
your
they
first
lived with
real
me.
estate deal.
It really was. It really was. And eventually, like another friend moved in, so I had 3 of my friends living with me, and like they destroyed the house. Like it got, it turned into like a because I wasn't very good at being like.
So how'd the guru get you into real estate, or was that just a stepping stone?
That was really just like a stepping stone. So this is August of 2014. I swiped a credit card for $25,000. Well, no, I swiped multiple credit cards for $25,000.
And the guru's assistants help you figure out how to do that. Probably, raise your credit
of course
limit.
they did.
I've heard about
that. I at least had like 10,000, and I had like another 5,000, another 10,000. Like between like 2 or 3 credit cards, I was able to like get that balance on there. And they don't tell you need money for marketing after that. So like I'm all like feeling great and stuff like that. And I ended up like partnering with another guy in the group. We're kind of doing this stuff together. He was kind of help funding some of it.
Was it flipping or wholesaling?
It was wholesaling. We were trying to like wholesale. And like the whole program was based around like you wholesale to flip to be a landlord to be the bank and do owner finance stuff. It's kind of like the whole. But he did teach. I will say like 12 different like types of strategies that like. Really were like, and all of them are very viable that you could do. So like, it did open my eyes to being like, there's more than just like you buy a house, you fix it up, and you sell it. Like he did teach a lot of stuff with that, but it was all still very generic knowledge. But it was the network that really connected it for me because I made my first and you put in your questionnaire.
Did you do a deal in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
With I think by January, and you asked like what was like a pivotal moment in my career. I remember me and this other guy. Partnered with another group to sell a wholesale house. And back in those days, like your wholesale deals weren't $15,000, $20,000, $50,000 stuff generically because prices just weren't that high and the market wasn't that hot yet. This is still like 2000, early 15. And I made $1,000
Oh
on
my
that
gosh.
first deal.
So now you're at 30 grand for the ticket. You made 1,000. Now you're 29 grand still negative.
Yeah, yeah, and I got $50,000 or $25,000 in student loan debt and a mortgage to pay for.
And you're still working full time though.
Yeah, I'm still working full time on this, and I made this $1,000.
Who's the guru? Now I need to know.
Huh?
Who is the guru now?
Phil Grove.
Okay, I've been around him and his wife forever.
Oh yeah, they've been around forever, and they run they still are very
Large
active.
operation.
Yeah, I still know the people in there, and some good people, but it's also like the pitch is like, it's a network if you know how to use it. But I remember making that first $1,000, and I sat in my truck, and I actually like got emotional. I cried a little bit. I was just like, "Oh my God, this is possible."
Money on my own outside of this job. There might be a path.
That was the ticket. It was just like, and it was also like the stress of like the realization of like I swiped 25 grand, and this shit isn't as easy as they say it was in the pitch. Like I realized like that was my first lesson of like, oh my God, like I'm freaking gullible. Like I believe everybody on their face value because that's how I grew up, the environment I grew up in. And I was like, okay, how am I going to pay off this 25 grand? Like, oh my God, that's a lot of money. And I look at like my bills and like what I was getting paid. I was like, this is going to take forever. Similar to you, where you're like, how long is it going to take me to get $2 million? I was like, how long is it going to take me to pay off this freaking debt that I got? Oh, yeah. And I was like, oh crap. But then like I still kept going. And like, I'm still going to make this a shot.
That's an important thing right there. I didn't like where I was at, but I still kept going.
And I made that $1,000, and then I quit my job.
Oh shit! That's like burn the boats
yeah,
quick.
Dude. Yeah, like 50. Like so, that guy that I had partnered up with, and we made this $1,000, and he's just like he started doing some coaching on the side for those people, and he's like, look, quit your job. I'll pay you $2,000 a month for like to help subsidize some of your bills and stuff like that.
Keep the lights on.
And let's partner up together, and I'll help fund some of the marketing. And so that was like kind of my first partnership, and I was like, you know what? 25 years old. I can always come back to this industry. I don't have a lot of stuff. I got 3 dudes paying my mortgage. It's like, okay, let's go.
Good. I like that.
So I just like put in my 2 weeks, and I remember it was March 6th of 2015 was the day I walked out of that door and have been successfully unemployed ever since. But yeah, I only made $1,000 when I just walked away from I think I was making mid 50s. But
you had no idea. You basically made 1 week's worth of pay in that deal. and you had no idea where you were headed, but you were about to figure it out.
I was about to figure it out because like I walked away from the 401k, I walked away from the health insurance, I walked away from the pay, walked away from everything, cashed in
and those all mattered so much. But what we were talking about beforehand, you just closed your first $100,000 net deal. All those things mattered so much until you figured out how to do deals that make 50 or 100 grand each. Now all those things don't matter at all. You don't even care. They don't move the needle.
No. It's one of those like, and I left the traditional path, and like my mom was super supportive because my mom also knew. My mom also knew that I'm going to do what I want to do, and she can't tell me otherwise. I will talk to her through it, but like if she gives like pushback or things like that, I was very stubborn. In that way growing up and stuff like that. So like, yeah, I quit my job and I started working with that guy. He got further into the coaching realm, and they tried to recruit me to do coaching because like, who doesn't want a 26-year-old kid that can say they're a successful real estate investor, help them sell their coaching program?
Right.
And I was like, I don't want to do coaching because I was still pretty bitter about like the whole guru selling thing. And I was like, you been the truth so much and give these people so much hope that I'm just like, and it's not true. You're only selling, what's it like, sell the steak, not the sizzle or something like that. They're only selling the sizzle, not the steak. So it was just like, I didn't like that. And so I was like, I don't want to do the coaching route. So now I met my current business partner back in 2015, and the three of us started working together, and then he kind of went the coaching route, and then my partner John, him and I partnered up, and then in 2016 we started our current business, Prime Home Solutions.
So what was that supposed to look like when y'all started?
Well,
what was your business model, so to speak?
What did we try to start originally? Like, we call it basically because we had no money, like at all. Like remember, I still had 25,000.
Because the ads of those most gurus say you don't need any money.
You don't need any money. It's like
we tell people don't come in broke. If you are, this ain't for you yet. Show up with a couple bucks and some relationships because you can't be broke to start this.
No. They say you didn't need money, but like I had 50,000 credit card, 50,000 credit card, 50,000 student loan, and other stuff. To where it's like he was an immigrant from Argentina, or his parents were, and then grew up in New York, and then moved. Like he's got a great story of how he's gotten to where he's at too. But we didn't have any money, and he had a newborn kid. A wife and a newborn child.
Damn.
And so him and I didn't have anything. So we started well, how do you get money to market? Well, I used that network that I had with that group. And like, then that's what I said, that network is what was the key. It's like, I had enough knowledge to be dangerous. But I had a lot, you need time, money, and experience.
Dude, how are you paying your bills at this point? I mean, your house bill is low.
I cashed in my 401k.
How much was that roughly?
Like 10 grand.
Okay, so you got some runway, but
a little bit of seed money, but my bills are still like relatively really low.
Dude, you bet it all and put it all on the line.
Yeah, because like that one guy was originally paying me the $2 grand a month, and then was like, dude, like you don't need to pay me that anymore. It's not fair to you because we're not really generating anything for that. And I cashed in my 401k, and then I was still kind of playing the credit card Jenga game to do stuff, and we started getting other people's money. It's like, you guys do the marketing here in San Antonio. We'll go run down the leads. We'll contract it. We'll help wholesale it. We'll do everything. And then we'll split the profit on the other side. So we just had a lot of time and some experience, but no money. So we found people with a lot of money, some little experience, and no time. So we found that extra piece that we had that they didn't, and vice versa.
And y'all were doing mailers?
So yeah, a lot of people were mailing back then because that program was all about direct mail. And some people were doing
It was hot in that era.
Yeah, it was. Because I remember like, this is 2015 summer, and we sent out, I think like 200, 300 foreclosure postcards, just basic printed, my family and I would like to buy your house.
Yeah.
And it was like, it was in handwritten font, but you could tell it was printed through a freaking machine.
Yeah.
And dude, I look back at like, if we could still get that kind of return response rates, we sent out 200 one day or 300. We got 83 phone calls the next day. Just phones melting.
That's
like you're just
40%.
Getting called. Yeah, you're like calling, you're hanging up, you're trying to run these, boom, phone ringing again. And it just like was just like, oh my God.
That's in the early phase of like the way the internet changed real estate investing on the scale. And you could get that return now today.
Dude, you send out thousands because we were started like, and that changed very quickly because we started managing other people's like mail campaigns for them here in San Antonio. And by 20, late 2016, 17, you were not getting that response rate at all because like it flipped that quick. And we were at the very tail end of like that foreclosure boom of before values took off, before Texas got real hot.
Yeah.
Because I did a lot of, I'm a data person. So I was watching the data where like, oh, wait, happened. Real estate didn't bottom out till 2010. 2011 is when it bottomed out here in Texas. So it was about a 3.5 year lag. And so we caught the very end of that massive upswing where there's still a lot of foreclosures. There weren't deals being like just overpaid for everywhere. And so we started making we made our monthly bills for him and I to live off of just managing other people's mailing campaigns.
Wow.
And we were going to networking events and finding people that.
You still haven't gotten proficient at the investing.
No.
You're figuring out related services.
So yeah, but like that's how I learned to actually invest stuff. I was using other people's money to gain experience of like how to negotiate. Cause like him and I both knew construction, but construction that we knew is very different than investing construction.
And that's only one piece of the puzzle. That's a less important part of the puzzle, actually.
It is. But we just didn't know anything. So like we used a lot of our just time that we had to go learn what this business was and build relationships on like how to wholesale, what's a deal. And one thing that I say like for new people starting out, like one of the biggest things, people focus on the money of like how much money is this deal going to make? And once they sell that deal, they were off. They were on to the next deal, try to find money, and that was all they were going after. But we spent the time to ask the investor, why are you buying this deal? What are you looking at? How do you look at these deals? What is a deal to you? To really learn like, okay, now we understand what a deal is. Now we understand like how to structure these things because we didn't want to be wholesalers. Like and most people start out, they're doing it for the money and they don't ask the important questions that really make them a better investor. And because I wanted to be a true investor. Wholesaling is not investing. Like you're
People
just
argue that
money.
it is, but it's not.
No, it's not. Like you're just buying. You're shuffling paper, making a spread. Like that's all you're doing. You're not buying, putting capital improvement into something.
It's almost like brokering, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%.
So we met around that 2015, 16 range. I remember we go to the gym and play racquetball, and we kind of became in each other's sphere. And I remember at the time you guys were doing a lot of rentals and then flips. I think if I remember right, you picked up 10, 20 rentals range?
We had got up to 14 during like COVID and stuff like that when we maxed
and you were
out.
flipping houses.
And so
your
our income
marketing
was
channel started to work, and you were keeping what you could and flipping the rest and selling some off as
well, we weren't keeping a whole lot back in those early days. Like we didn't buy our first rental property until like 2018, 19. In that range, and it happened. It was a deal that went south, and we were able to find a private lender that lent us the money to hold the thing. I was like, so it worked.
That's a big step from getting marketing money from somebody to like.
It was 170 grand that we got somebody to lend to us on a house.
That's meaningful.
It was, and like
that's a big step in your career, though. Now you're sourcing private money in this large six-figure instead of just a marketing campaign. It's a big change.
And it was all from that network of people. And we found and that's how we started is like, we wanted to flip. We wanted to actually be investors. So like we bought our first house to flip and we found and that's one thing new people do. And I tell them when they get started is like, don't focus on the money. Like if you find an investor,
because you don't have any.
Yeah. You don't have any, but you have to have the long-term vision in front of that. Like you're going to make money, but like, don't say, I want to be super rich. And like this is the difference between like mine and your stories during that time is I was trying to like generate money because I had no money. And the first deal we did, we gave dude 50% of it to bring them up. We brought the deal, we sourced the deal, we closed it, we did all the renovation. I was a realtor at the time. I was going to list it. He was just bringing the money and we gave him 50% of the profit because we needed the credibility
for being a lender, which is a great return for a lender.
But I also look at it, I tell people like, look at the risk they're taking on you as somebody who has no experience.
True. I agree.
In this. And so we got that first deal under our belt and then we started generating interest by posting that stuff on Facebook, talking to people, staying involved in networks. And we established our name and our credibility of what we did. And then
happens faster than you think.
It really did. Because like this is like 2018-ish. And then by look back at 2021, we'd have 10 renovations going on at one time.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And well, because like my background was construction management and like I knew how to manage that stuff.
So 10 renovations, let's just roughly say 200 grand a piece. By the time you buy it and repair it, you got a couple $1 million in private capital work.
Oh yeah. We had a couple $1 million in private capital work and we had new builds going on downtown. Then we had new construction up here. And then I had multiple renovations going on. And it was all like, I still have yet to take, like somebody says how to get a hard money loan. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, don't ask me.
I did one to this one time.
Yeah, it's like I have borrowed privately my entire life, and I still borrow private to this day. But now, so here's the difference. Like, so probably by 2021, when we started getting up that 10 renovations, my first deal, I had to give 50% of the profit to do literally everything. They provided the money. Now I can borrow with a text message at 10% interest. I can borrow my purchase and my rehab upfront. Title companies get weirded out because I'm getting money back as the buyer in the tune of like 30, 40, 50, 60 grand. And they're like, you're getting this money back? Because they're used to loans. And like, I'm getting all my money up front and it's a 1-year term. And like, because I've spent the time to build the credibility as somebody as a steward of their cash. They know they don't need to worry about it.
So at that point, you're probably half a dozen years into investing. You're very traditionally focused.
Yes.
And we were just talking earlier today, you did your first $100,000 deal, and we talk periodically, and you're like, I have 6 owners on this one. I got some kind of judgment. There's some fork in the road where you went from like the standard path into the distressed real estate.
How did that happen? So this is also like,
because I remember we would have these talks when we were playing racquetball, and you'd tell me about this flip, and I would always ask, well, what if you did this, or what if you did that? And your answer was like, you would have answers, but I would challenge them sometime because I was buying pure distress at the time.
I remember there's times we run each other at the gym. We sit there and talk for 30 minutes and we'd walk in, see each other talk, and then both have to leave because like, we're like, we've been talking for too long.
Yeah.
And I was always fascinated. I was like, I still just like, until like we worked together, like I didn't understand how those deals actually worked. I just knew you were doing something like that when you're like, oh, I don't buy outside a title company. I'm like, how do you get the money like to trust that stuff? And like for us, I'm like, because the deals we were buying worked as flips.
Right.
To make like 20, 30 grand on the flip. You couldn't buy something like that, throw in the MLS and make that kind of money on that spread because we were paying too high. We were negotiating too high because we just didn't know what we didn't know about the space at that time. And we had no money to even do stuff like that because you worked a lot in the lower price point areas. I was buying outside 410, that's 16, I called it the horseshoe, like 410, 1604, 10 to 35.
That's more median income, median house price.
Yeah, I stayed at the median price point, like our typical flip, and we still do these to this day, but we've gotten much, much, much better at it, a lot more selective in this. It's like, I want medium price homes. I don't want high price. I don't want low price. I want that medium price point that people fall to if they get squeezed, because people are always going to want housing. And then people are always striving lower than that to get up to that point. So it was like medium price point under is where we always stayed. And our houses sold, and they sold quick. And after doing that kind of, that many renovations, we started to realize like what actually sold houses and what you needed to do versus not do to maximize the value on that renovation.
You had some experience as the investor, but where's that divergence from the standard model to like this other world?
I remember exactly where I was sitting. We were doing a renovation. This is COVID era. We bought a house that I was nervous about. We like wholetailed the thing, and I was sitting outside this house.
Okay, so for some people that might not know, when you say instead of flipping or whatever, wholesaling it, you wholetailed it. That means you borrowed the money from someone, and instead of flipping it, you just closed on it, cleaned it up, and put it on MLS as it stood, as you got it.
Yep. And
so that's a combination between wholetail or retail and wholesale. It's the wholetail. That's what they call it.
Like I just put some new carpet in it, cleaned up the things that were broken.
You refurbished it lightly.
Refurbished it. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And threw it on the MLS, and I was real nervous about it. I was like, I don't know.
Because it wasn't fancy all done up.
No, it wasn't necessarily fancy all done up. I just knew something wasn't right in the market. Like what we were experiencing, I knew this is not normal. Because this is also like after a year of things were just going up, where you bought a property and it just went up in value 20 grand in 3 months. And it's like, this isn't sustainable. This isn't working. Like, I don't feel comfortable. We're making money, but I just like, because I was.
When's the music going to stop?
I have a data, and I love finance, and I just like, this can't go on forever. And then I remember you had posted something on Facebook or somehow, and about thinking about doing some coaching. And I distinctly remember talking to my business partner, and I was like, I want to do this. Like, whatever he charges, we're going to pay it. Like, I want to learn how to do, what I wanted to learn how is like, how do you close deal outside of title? Like, I knew you were doing that, and you're making much larger spreads than what we were doing. And you'd post stuff like the kind of deal flow and things you were doing to an extent. You'd like, this is your first coaching thing that you ever did. So all of this wasn't here yet. And so you were posting like deals you were doing, but it wasn't formulated towards like a coaching thing. And it wasn't like step-by-step stuff yet.
Mm-hmm. It's just, this is what we do every day.
Yeah. And you were very articulate in like the stories you would tell and the way you'd tell your stories. I was like, I like listening to his stories, but I was like, I don't get how he's doing this. Like, what exactly are you doing? And then I talked to Barbera, said, we're doing it. And I remember he called you and you guys talked about it. And it's like, okay, like we're going to take the money we've been making the last couple of years because like I know this music is going to stop. And we still didn't know how to market like at all. Like we were getting, like we'd started to figure it out at that time. But that the market like just like froze. Like, and I know you guys experienced it like 22, 23, like all of a sudden, like, we were doing like probate deals. We were doing all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden, like that stuff stopped. And I was like, people are still dying. Like, what are happening to these houses? And like, I still don't know like what exactly where all that business went. Cause people still passed away in those houses. But like the general marketing for it just stopped. And I think it was also a lot of, we were heavily dependent on text blasting and VA's cold calling. And that was before all those regulations came out that really stopped that stuff. Because of that boom. Right. So like that stuff started getting more regulated and I could just kind of see that like things were shifting. And I think it was 22 that you started that first program, summer of 22. So rates had started to rise and like I could see the writing on the wall that things were slowing down just because we had the volume. And it was 22. And we started that first coaching program you had. And I remember you talking about it. It's like, now it's much more focused on different things, or the distressed real estate in the beginning. But because I think when you were starting that first one, you didn't know exactly what you were wanting to do. Is like you wanted to work with businesses and like help businesses grow. And now you focus it on like, hey, no, they want to do the.
So there's a lot that I've learned over that time. My goal is to help other people. So I'd help business partners grow and nurture and develop their business lines. And I knew that I was capable of that. And my goal was to find folks who are already in the real estate business and help them develop their business better. And I looked at it much more broadly at the time to talk about how do you finance, how do you manage your capital, what kind of deals you're looking for. So I started sharing what I was doing and how I was doing. Since then, I've refined it a little bit more to the most important thing that I can teach people in the shortest amount of time to help them get the revenue. And there's all these other parts of the business that I don't have time to do, but frankly, I let people figure that out. If I can help them, let me back up. Revenue solves almost all problems in businesses.
100%.
So I thought, let me attack that. That's the biggest part. All the other stuff I'll let them figure out on their own. But if I can help them find the properties, negotiate them, and buy them to make money, they can figure out their operational stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was where it evolved. But in the moment, I was like, I got to teach these folks what I know generally about business. And it was less targeted at the time.
Yeah, for sure. And then we started talking about your business and distressed real estate and like how to focus more on like what truly distressed real estate meant.
Yeah.
And like, and now I define it as
let me ask you that today. What does distressed real estate mean to you today?
It's somebody needs to sell the property. And it's usually because like they're facing some kind of like, they're going to lose the thing or they're going to lose out on potential to make money because there's some kind of situation going on, usually with the ownership of the property, like distressed title work. Because you have distressed properties that are just beat down, run down, that you could throw on the MLS and any freaking investor will go buy the thing off of it.
Right.
So like that's distressed real estate too. But it's more looking for like distressed situations.
Like extreme.
Like they need to sell the house. Not just want to sell the house, because the people that wanted to sell the house, and they'll find somebody else that'll pay more than I will. Like 100%. Because we use that tactic.
Wanting to sell and needing to sell are different.
And it's like distressed in my mind is somebody that needs to sell the house. Because now that is something that I can use my expertise and my knowledge base to help solve that problem. Because if they just want to sell the property, throw it on the MLS and you let them all bid for it and like go for it and like they'll fight for it over there. Like I'm not your guy for that because I don't overpay for property. I'm not getting bidding wars. When I give you my price up front, that is my price because I know that's what'll work.
Isn't that remarkably different than the way it used to be where you were being bid up by other buyers and the seller's driving the bus and you're at the mercy of all these other things you don't have any control? Today, that's different.
It is. But it still exists when I go to and for you guys, when you go to sell property, throw on the MLS and it is somebody it's the barrier of entry is so easy. I'm on the other side of it. And that my definition of that distressed is somebody needs to sell. So if they want to sell, go get a realtor, go sell it. Right. You can bring in 7 people through the front door to solve your problems. Because I was actually just talking with Kyle before this. And I asked him what do your deals involve deceased, somebody that's passed that you have owners that got a fractured ownership interest and they got problems they need to solve. And he's probably 90%. And it's because that is a problem where we can use our knowledge and our specific expertise and our niche in the market to solve those problems and help those owners get their money that they're
So what does that look like? Tell me what your business today looks like. How many people are in it? What will your transactional volume look like? And tell me about a couple of these deals. What is he really dealing with?
Yeah. Well, do you want me to tell you how I first got into I worked with you, but it's still you were very general business at first. And I was I still want to know this. And we had a foreclosure situation. And you said, I'll partner with you on this deal. I was all right, cool. And it had a fractured estate. They had a couple different owners. And it was in foreclosure. And I was man, do you want to partner with this? How do we do this? And you kind of showed all right, this is how we buy this thing outside of it. And that's when I learned the distinct difference. And the secret sauce that I learned was there's a difference between something indexing to a person versus a property. And that shifted my mind a complete 180 to where it's now I get it. And I always said you have to do a trek. You have to go through title companies.
So you learned about distressed real estate, but until you were actually walking through a transaction step by step, it didn't totally sink. Once you start to walk through it, you said, oh my gosh, it's a different world.
And I then learned that you don't have to pay people all of their money up front. It's we can do a customized contract. Nothing says you have to use the trek.
But people are just accustomed to doing that, and they never question the answers. They never think outside the box. They never do anything different.
Because I get that question. I tell people, oh, yeah, we usually pay $250, $500 to get the deed and to start our transaction, and then we pay them what is due after we get everything done.
So you're seller financing because I love distressed real estate because it's much more efficient with capital because you're paying a lot less for property relative to the resale. Another step to manage your capital even more is what you're saying. You're purchasing it and the seller's financing it to you, just like the seller would be like the Wells Fargo. You're giving, for the folks listening who don't know, you're giving $500 down or $1,000 down. You're taking possession, you're buying it, and now you owe them either monthly payments, quarterly payments, or a lump sum at some predefined time. But that gives you the ability to control the property now
100%.
For a lot less money in.
100%. And that's what we did with that transaction.
Now you're not going to borrow $150,000 in private capital. You show up with 2 G's and you're in the game.
100%. And that was the defining moment that changed everything. We did that one transaction. I saw how that worked, and then that's when it clicked. And I was like,
boom.
That's how it's done.
What was the net on that deal, if you recall?
I think we netted 45 and we split that.
So the cost all in was how much?
I think we spent $2,000 to each owners, and then we paid off the bank, and that was 50-ish.
So you're in for 50, and you make
and we sold it for. I remember we sold it for 100. We threw it on the MLS, and then there was another big investor, Sam Madrid, was the one that ended up buying the house.
Oh yeah, that's right. I remember that.
Yeah, and he came through and he bought it for 100, and minus some selling costs and stuff like that. We were in the 40s range, and we split that.
So it's about a 50% gross margin, about 100% markup, and you only used 50.
And we didn't touch the property. We didn't renovate it. We did all we did. I don't think we even cleaned it out. I think Sam was I'll clean it out. And
so what would be the average you'd make on your old flips when you'd borrow $150,000 and manage them for 6 months? How much did you make on those?
25 to 35-ish.
So this deal earned
and that
double
would take 4 to 6 months.
So this deal only took $50,000 instead of $150,000 of capital to use. It made twice as much as the typical flip.
And a third of the time, 2 months.
Game over.
Yeah.
Game over.
And that's when it
and
really
then you said, this is it.
It's okay, now I get it. And that's when it's we need to find problems that solve. Because
you know what? Selfishly, I'm going to say this. I feel like that involvement in the coaching program, while it was my early rendition, it wasn't the best, but it got you involved. It got you to connect the dots. And it was the sole cause of your first business and life-changing deal. relative to all the other time you spent. That was the one that did it.
That transaction in that first $1,000 I made that showed that I could go out and do something, make money myself, and be in control of the whole situation.
Bam.
I was like, those two situations right there are probably the most defining. And I do, like, to your point, it's like you didn't know what you're doing, but like that is what it was worth it. That made everything worth it. Just that one transaction we did, and like, we only did one, and then like you shut down that first coaching program, or like 3 or 4 months later. And it's like, but at that point, it's like, okay,
the seed had been planted.
Yeah, I was like, okay, and we figured out like mortgage foreclosures. Like, how do we systemize that? And then we started doing that. We got a new acquisitions person. We had some turnover, and then we started focusing only on mortgage foreclosure. And it's still our biggest business line now is mortgage foreclosures.
Why do you like mortgage foreclosures?
Because they need to sell, and in Texas, they can close like that. It's not a judicial process. It is they file and they gotta go, and they're gonna, like, the bank is going to take the house on that day. There's no negotiating it. There's no postponing it. It's like it's gotta go. There is a huge pressure point that they have a serious problem and they're gonna lose everything if they don't figure it out.
Got it.
And it's like that's why we stick with mortgage, like, because tax is a little different. Where like there isn't as much pressure from people to sell because it's such a longer, drawn-out process. Right. And this is one thing we talk about in our business now is there's a lot less options to solve a mortgage foreclosure than tax foreclosure. Because tax foreclosure, like, say it's just like an owner, 2 or 3 owners, or something like that. One of the owners lives in the house and the other 2 don't. And that owner can go get a deferment and just make payments to the county. The county's not going to foreclose. They can go get a tax foreclosure or a tax loan. They can go find an owner or a friend to give them $15,000. Mortgage, it's way higher and way more pressure, and you have to refinance the thing through the bank, which you have to qualify for.
If your credit is bad because you're in foreclosure, you can't get a refi. Everybody always says, I'm going to loan mod a refi. I'm like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. And it's like you still have to qualify for that. But more tax, you have a lot more options at a much lower price point. So there's not as much pressure as there is with a mortgage.
That's fair, yeah.
That is what we focus on now is mortgage foreclosures. And then it's also, there's problems in there that require that expertise that we were talking about that we have that other people don't know how to solve.
They haven't spent the time to develop it. You don't have to be a rocket scientist, in my opinion, because I couldn't have made it into engineering or medical or law school. But when you figure out a process and you develop that as much as you possibly can, and it's a high value process, you make more than a doctor.
Yeah, 100%.
It's not rocket science, but you got to spend the time developing it. You got to be in the right place and kind of figure that out.
You got to understand risk too. The risk versus reward piece of like, you got to understand like how much risk you're actually taking relative to what you could make. So like that risk piece in that, because I learned that early on with the flipping business, because I saw these people overpaying for properties, and like we saw that during COVID especially, brought in everybody that they only made profit because the market went up. I always stayed through like, no, I buy something because I can make money today at today's value. If it goes up, icing on the cake.
Yes.
But I can make money today.
Yes.
Because plenty of people, because I think there was one in that first coaching program, he got in that business, started buying a ton of properties and realized that once the market went up, I was making money.
100 properties a year with a slim margin. And I was terrified when we first got to know each other. I said, dude, this market shifts, you will literally go bankrupt in 30 days. And he was like, well, I acknowledge and I realize that, but it's been fine. And it actually happened.
Oh, yeah. And like and I'm sure you kind of had a sixth sense of that, like, this is going to happen. Like the market can't keep going up $15,000 every 2 months.
Look at market cycles.
Forever.
They roll.
And I was always into market data. I did market updates for years and was always tracking, and we still do it to this day. We use VAs to download the MLS. We separate it out to really watch and understand the market.
Right.
So it was understanding risk and looking at it that way. So like that is what I tell people we're really doing is like, you got to understand that piece and how much you're willing to put up. So like why we pay like $500 to be able to control the property, because we don't know if we're going to be able to solve the problems that got them into the situation that led us to owning this.
How do you pitch that to somebody? How do you convince someone to sell you their property for $500 down and some payment later?
So a lot of these people, like, one, they just don't know it any other way. And we speak with confidence, and we have Google reviews that show that we can show that we know what we're doing. We are an expert in this. We're not just anybody that says, oh, just do these things.
You got a track record.
Yeah, we have a track record. But like those early days when we didn't have that track record, it took time to develop it. But a lot of people, like, they don't know, normal people don't know how to solve the problem. So when we come in with a different approach, and we also approach is like, hey, we want to help you. Like most people go in like, you just need to sell your house. And it's like, no, like, let's help figure out your problem. Let's like actually work together to solve these issues you got. And
so you're humanizing the situation instead of treating it like a used car sale.
100%. And I think a lot of, and that we do win out a lot of other people because we come in with compassion and empathy versus hard pressure sales tactics.
You treat them like a human instead of a piece of shit, basically.
100%. And like most people use a high pressure sales tactic. You got to do this, sign now as one time deal, where we use a lot of those.
Offer expires at 5 o'clock today.
Yeah. And we use some of those same tactics, but in a much different way. And where it's like, look, like, here's the options you have. Like, one, you have a title issue. Like you yourself today can't go sell this property. You go gamble with any other wholesaler that's going to come through and promise you the moon, and they're going to drag you to the end of the day, and they're not going to be able to solve your problem.
They might leave you at the altar. Are you willing to bet it all?
Are you willing to bet it all and stuff? And because especially when I was talking with Shelly this beforehand, if you don't pitch this well, somebody else will come. They will sign with somebody else for $3,000 more because these people are so in a situation where it's like money talks. I don't care. You can be Grant Cardone. Somebody could walk in behind him if they have a better or an okay pitch, but are offering $5,000 more, like, and you don't combat the things in that contract and what they're going to say in your pitch, they'll sign with somebody else.
One of the problems is these people don't buy and sell real estate as a business, so they're just looking at the dollars, and they forget that what's really important is who can I trust to get this done, who can be sure that they can get it done. And they think all buyers are equal. And that's, I think, an important part of our pitch is we explain to people why we're different than the others.
100%.
And that's the only way I can get people to go with us over others who might offer something immaterial as $3,000. It might sound like a lot to them, but let's say they're walking away with $20,000 or $23,000.
Yeah.
It seems like a huge difference. But at the end of the day, if that $20,000 isn't even for sure, or $23,000 isn't for sure, who cares about $3,000 if they can't get the deal done?
And another thing that we pitch differently is we figure out what they're going to, it's never about the money. It's about what they think they can do with the money. So if you can solve that problem, like say like,
what does that mean?
We had one lady that just like, I just want to sell my house, buy an RV and travel around the rest of my days. I was like, and she wanted some high price, whatever it means. Since she wanted 80,000. It was like what she wanted to net or whatever it was. And it's like, okay, well, how much does an RV cost? Well, I'm thinking like, I don't know, like $30,000. Like, okay,
I might get you that
$30,000.
RV instead of give you a bunch of cash.
Well, no, we never went that route, but we just talked, like we made them realize like they didn't need this much money to solve the problem they wanted. It was never about the money. It's like they had a dream of something they can go do with that money. Money is just a vehicle to go buy and exchange goods and services. So what goods and services are you going to buy? And we'll talk about that.
You're detaching the value of the real estate from the purchase price. And that's a big thing in our discussions with people. Yep. I want them to understand I'm not necessarily paying you like square for this property. I'm buying your situation. I'm stepping into your footsteps. And you already know it's a train wreck. Hopefully I can do better than you have, but I'm buying a huge risk. So these dollars aren't necessarily buying the property, they're buying your spot.
And also we detach the price of the house to how much they're going to net. And we put in our contracts a lot of like, you are going to net this amount.
It's very clear.
Very clear.
What kills me is a lot of wholesalers will offer a dollar amount, but the sellers don't know how many judgments or liens, how much is the mortgage. And then they get to the closing table and they're going to net 20 grand and they're all bent out of shape. The person who bought it from them wasn't clear about that.
And that's what we formulate all of that into our pitch.
Good.
And like we educate, we use empathy, compassion. We're here to help. And you can get much better deals because the amount of money they need that needs to solve their problem isn't that much.
You're being a decent operator.
I'm being a decent operator. I'm being straight. I'm being honest. While I might not be, quote unquote, your best option monetarily, I'm your best option to get this done, and I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do.
To me, that still is your best option because you're the most probable to deliver.
And like I firmly believe like we are some of the best at doing what we say we're going to do.
I agree.
It's like you can take a risk and maybe make more money. You could. I'm not going to say that, but
with greater return comes greater risk.
Greater risk.
What are you willing to accept?
Exactly. And when we come in and we can show our credibility, we can show our reviews, we can speak with confidence, we can tell them exactly what we're going to do and then do that exact thing.
That's it.
It's like sign the dotted line. And most of the time, like we did this a lot. Barrera did this. Like he'd bring me freaking damn near blank contracts with signatures on it.
Oh my God.
Because like he didn't know how to fill out a contract. because it was never about the contract.
It was about the rapport and the trust.
It was about the rapport and the trust. And it's like, this is what we talked about. And it might just have just a purchase price on it. He's like, this is also what we're going to say we're going to do. So I would have to write like in the special provisions, like, and it was being honest. And like, and I realized like how dangerous some of this stuff could be in the wrong hands. Because there's a ton of scumbags in this industry, because any industry that you can make a lot of money and that is easy to sell, that's got low barrier of entry, you're going to get scumbags in it. Gosh. And you and I know plenty of them.
You're right.
So like we formulate all in our pitch, and we make people trust us, and that allows us to get the margins we need to run and operate our business.
You go to construction management in college, you get a job, you don't love it, you get into real estate, you're fumbling around, you're doing your $10,000, $15,000 deals, then you jump into distressed real estate and figure out how to make these $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 licks. And now you've done your first $100,000 net. How much did you spend to get that one?
Like total to buy it?
Yeah.
Or just initially get
into it? What was your
it?
investment? All in,
we were about like 45.
So you spent 45 to make 100,000.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's a good one. How long did it take?
Like 2 months. Yeah, and the
So
initial.
let's hear it. Where'd you find it?
It was a mortgage foreclosure, and we knew there was a problem because the owner of record was not the owner that has passed away. So we knew that there's like, hey, there's a problem here that somebody hasn't solved yet, because that documentation was not in probate and it wasn't in the land records.
The mortgage and the deed were under different names.
No. The mortgage and deed were in a person's name, but that person was deceased. And they hadn't transferred that out of that person's name yet.
Got it.
They hadn't gone through the process. But we go after any mortgage initially, but most of them that we actually work with, because there's a problem that not everybody can solve.
So why was this one so different though? How did this one give you 100 G's and the others are 50?
Yeah, so we went into it not knowing it was going to make that much, because what was being foreclosed on? When they get foreclosed on, you can see the deed of trust and you can see the original amount, the date and the amount.
The original amount of the mortgage.
And we knew that person was deceased, so like we didn't know how much market there. It was like $100,000 line of credit that was being foreclosed on. So we just ran with, and it was from like so many years ago, and like when these mortgages go backwards, they go backwards fast in the amount that's actually owed. So we're like, all right, so let's just run it with like they actually have 100. That banknote is still $100,000, and we could see it was 22,000 behind on taxes.
So you chose to value it at $100,000, even though it was old. You knew they started at 100, they paid it down, got behind. Delinquency probably brought it back up to somewhere around 100. So to be safe, let's just say it's the original principal balance.
The original principal balance. There's 22,000 back taxes. I was like, we could probably sell this thing for, I don't know, like at that time I was thinking like 140, 150. But let's give it a shot. And we got a hold of the lady, and she gave us the situation. I was like, yeah, Dad passed away. The house has got a bunch of judgments and liens against it. He ran a pharmacy, got some judgments put against him for that. He had 2 houses, one that actually got foreclosed on the previous year, and she's like, there's nothing I can do with it.
So because the other foreclosures out of Dad's estate already happened, she knew this was going the same way.
This was going the same way, and they had a deed from Mom to her for this property, but the connection between Dad to Mom wasn't done yet. That was the break in the chain that hadn't been to connect the piece.
So Mom was Dad's heir. Mom and Dad owned it. When Dad died, Mom inherited his share, but there was no paperwork, no probate, no nothing.
And then there was 2 other heirs that were estranged from the property, 2 owners. Yeah, 2 other owners that were estranged from the property, that this sister that was dealing with this didn't have any contact with. But I was looking at it, I was like, knowing what we know, I was like, wait, you guys, Mom and Dad, married one time, 3 kids, all the same marriage, 100% of the interest of the house goes to wife when he passed. And it's like, and then when Mom deeded you the interest of the house,
she gave it all to you.
She gave it all to you. These other 2 people,
she's dealing with a one-owner property.
Yeah, a one-owner property at that time, and which was like why this one like worked out so simple. But it's also you got to swing at everything and hit a lot of base hits to get a home run. Yeah. Because I've definitely done ones that had, the biggest one I had 15 owners attached to it, and plus 9 deceased on top of it that had to all be taken care of to get.
It's a lot.
It was a lot. So that one took a lot, and it netted less than this one.
But you're right. People say, how do you get to the Super Bowl? Well, you have to play a bunch of championships, a bunch of regular season games, and if you're good enough, you get to the Super Bowl a few times. You can't just say,
and you got to play Pee Wee ball all the way back from when you were a kid to work up to that point. Yeah. So we went in and we told like, look, let us take a shot at this. We explain what we do. Like we specialize in solving these kind of problems. for owners to where we can get them a piece of what's rightfully theirs. And then she's like, you know what? I mean, if you guys want to do it, go for it.
She's already written this property off.
She had,
didn't
because she
care.
already did it with the other property a year before.
And you're going to give her how much?
We were going to give her $5,000.
So instead of her losing the thing for nothing, at least she walks away with $5,000.
Yep, and that's kind of how we pitched. Like, at least let us give it a shot. And and it's also for us. It's like I only paid her $500 up front to get into the position to see if I could solve it, because I have to control the property in order to be able to solve a lot of these problems.
Got it.
And that's what we did. So like, if we were out, it's like, hey, if we're able to get this problem solved, you make $5,000. The $500 is yours no matter what. It's our shot. We're paying $500 to see if we can make this. And a lot of times it is gambling. We don't know what we're going to run into on the other side. And we do tell people that too. Like, one reason why we offer so little is because we need to keep our options open financially to solve a lot of these problems. Like, if there is people we need to serve or sue or use the legal system involved, like our legal fees can be 10, 20 grand on a property. And like, I need to have that margin in there in case that happens.
So the reason you're having to pay a lot less is because there are a lot of risks. You might have a big legal budget. You might have major problems. And the way I see it is you're trying to solve for all those risks to make sure you have enough margin of safety. If you get lucky and all those don't happen, then you'll have a pretty good profit margin.
Yeah, and even then, it's the same principle when we bought a property. It needs to make money today. So I have to factor all of that stuff in, and that's why we tell people, like, you're only going to give me this amount? And they're like, look, okay, so say I get in this position. I don't know what I'm going to run into until I'm taking your position at this table.
Right.
That's when I find out what is actually going to happen to solve all these problems. I have a general idea, but I don't know until I sit at that table and my name's on that title.
So how's the business changed today relative to what it was a couple of years ago when you weren't doing all the stress?
Oh man, I mean, we were just
like, are you earning more? Are you working harder?
Oh yeah, earning more, working less for sure. And which is like the general idea that everybody wants to have their lives. Like, I just want to earn more money and work less. But it's also, it's a different type of work. Cause like, I like being a problem solver, to where it was just like, when I was just running house to house to house to house to house, like it just became like, oh God, I'm just so tired of like, cause like, I had to solve contractor problems.
You're the babysitter, adult babysitter.
Yeah,
again.
and because like you and I talk about this, you say like I shouldn't flip it all anymore. Like, but I've developed a system and way to do it to where like I can maximize my profit without spending really any more time than just selling the thing anyways. Because I have a good contractor and I only flip houses that I only have to go to like once, maybe twice. Because then the contractor can solve any of those problems, or I can solve it over the phone. I don't need to go to the house. And instead of selling it making 20, I can sell it and make 50. And it doesn't really cost me anymore because I have the relationships built with the lenders, the contractors, the realtors that I don't list any more properties more like I used to. So it's like, I'm able to boost that extra piece, get that extra 30 grand without spending a lot more effort.
So your business has gotten a lot better. You can now make 50 and 100 grand a deal instead of 20 or 30. But a lot of people ask, you're in a space where people are saying, is this ethical? You're buying homes from people that are going through foreclosure, death, all these things. Do you ever struggle with the morality of it?
So a lot, and like, it's hard to articulate in a way for most people to understand, because most people focus on the money. I was like, you got to put yourself in the position these people in. Is like, they're at wit's end. And the reason like we push so hard and like try to sell so hard and build so much rapport in that initial first call, especially with mortgage foreclosures, is because that list is public. It's the easiest list to find for your starting investor. Like, and people get freaking calls 3 months after about a house that they've already sold, because like that information just hits the internet and it's everywhere. You got to understand like the amount of calls those people are going to get and the type of scumbags we know in this industry, or just the inexperience of the industry, because it's the easiest list to find. Mm-hmm. And we go in and like, just like we were talking about earlier, like we're here to help and we think we're the best at your position, and we take the time to educate them enough of what the risks are to go to other people and go with other people. We explain why our offer is the way our offer is. And we tell them like, what are you needing to do with that money? Like, what are you trying to do with this? And we focus on that. So like the morality of it is like, we're still solving their problems. We ask like, what do you need the money for? And we can solve that problem. You have this ownership issue. We can solve that problem. And we run through those scenarios, and like, because we need to keep our options open because we don't know what we're going to run into if there is judgments and liens or some pissed off person in the title chain and stuff like that. And like, we do run into those situations. We got to postpone the foreclosures a lot of times because people call us with like 2 weeks to go. I'm like, I can't run all this stuff I need to do in that amount of time. I might need to pay an attorney to get a postponement. And so like, I'm the one fronting all of the legal fees to get to that end result.
Makes
so
sense.
like, I have to bake all of that into what I offer you, and other people don't know that. And if you go with somebody else, you're taking that risk. They don't know what they're doing. They don't have the capital, time, the expertise to go after that higher amount. So it's like, the morality of it is like, hey, you don't have to sign this paperwork, but I do think I'm the best option for you because of X, A, B, C reasons.
Makes
and
sense.
like, we don't grab their hand and make them force it. It's like, we're not using some high pressure sales tactic, but it is like, hey, we're here, we're making your offer. It's not good till 5 o'clock because we usually leave it open. But like, the next day we might say, hey, we're pulling the offer because we realize people because once that hit the foreclosure list, they start getting calls, they start getting answers, they start getting fed a lot of information from a lot of different people. And we actually use third-party stories of people that haven't gone with us and have been screwed over and lost everything, because that happens every day too. So the morality of it is like, we are your best option. We might not be your cheapest option, but we are your best option.
Right. You've mentioned that people only see the home runs, not the risk or the knowledge or the grind behind them. What's the math look like on those low ball offers that get so much criticism?
Well, just like that one for that $100,000 one we netted, is like, once we bought it, and because like, she couldn't get access to the bank, and we actually got the bank to comply with the information, and we found out that bank note was only $18,000. So it took our spread when we weren't thinking we were going to be in there, but we had to be in the ownership position in order to get the bank to comply, and that's when our profit jumped massively to make, because we knew we were like going
so
in.
Your
like,
margin, your perceived margin went from maybe 20 or 30 grand up to 100.
Yeah, and then
Wow.
when we bought it then we paid off the bank, paid off the seller, paid off the taxes. Well, we didn't pay. We paid the taxes at closing, and then we just sold it for $170 through another wholesaler. But like, we didn't go in with that intention of like, we're only chasing big deals. It's like, no, we take a crack at everything. We make, like, I'm not going to go in for something that doesn't have at least a 20 spread margin that I can use to negotiate and see where we're at. And then that one just happened to be bigger. And that's where a lot of these work out. Like, because the bank isn't going to talk to us because we're not the owner. So like, we got to get ourselves in a position to see what is even owed. And then a lot of times, like, we just did one where it was like, we made like $3,500 because we took a gamble on it, and the bank turned out to be a lot higher than we thought it was going to be, but we still did right by the owner and closed on it. And
Those are good things.
And so we still did them a service, got them out of the situation, and performed. And we spent a lot of time and made very, very little. But combined with the one where we spent not very much time, it made a lot. It all kind of averages out.
So you've talked about purchasing folks' interest before the foreclosure sale and then going after excess proceeds. Is that something a lot of people know how to do?
I don't think they do. And it's not a huge portion of our business that where we only focus on that, because the only time it gets in that situation is when we couldn't solve the problems, and it actually goes to foreclosure.
So when you go in to buy the ownership interest to get excess proceeds, you're not intending to do that. That's a backstop to a deal that wouldn't work out otherwise.
Because that is a secondary situation. The first, because we're buying these interests before the foreclosure, because there's other people that go out and help people buy their interest and then go get the excess proceeds. We end up in that position because we were trying to solve the problem beforehand. Gotcha. And then because we're taking title to these properties, we couldn't solve a problem. It gets foreclosure, and now we're the owner of record. And now we can go get the excess proceeds.
I think in Texas, if I recall correctly, the statute was changed maybe 10 years ago where you can't buy the rights and claims to the excess proceeds. But if you want to go claim them on their behalf, I think you can get 15% or $1,500, the lesser of the two.
That's on tax foreclosure, not mortgage. And
there's
I learned
no
that
cap
too.
on mortgage.
There's no cap on mortgage. And I learned that because I found that same statute, and I was like, oh my God, we can't do this. And then it was what's that attorney's name? I don't know, you knew his name. He's just kind of squirrely guy, interesting guy. And he's like, no, that's tax foreclosure. Yeah, all that changed because like back in the day, the reason SB 600 is kind of coming about is a lot of people were doing some very unscrupulous things and they got caught. And so they wrote the laws where it made it much more regulated. Mortgage isn't that way because up until 2020, people didn't have equity in their houses like they have equity in their houses now.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So people weren't doing that, and you got to be careful with those people that are going after excess proceeds only for mortgage because, like, I bet those laws are going to get written the same way because people now have massive amount of equity in their houses. But back to your question of like the excess proceeds, like we're trying to solve their problems up front, and we have a contract value with that person. Like if and when we monetize this deal, we will pay you this amount. To where if it gets foreclosed on and we can still go claim the excess proceeds, we'll still do right by that contract. But
that's nice.
But a lot of times, but that's another reason like why we have to give so low is like we might only have 50% of the interest, 75% of the interest. Because there was one owner that just wouldn't comply, or a situation like one of the ones we ended up in that situation is one of the owners disappeared in 2007 and it hasn't been seen since.
Wow.
And like they're like she was murdered, but there was no body, there's no nothing. So like she hadn't been declared deceased by a judge yet. And title would not let that piece go. And we couldn't get around that without a judge's order. And we didn't
So
have
what
enough,
did you do?
We didn't have enough time or money to solve that problem. And it just ended up getting
So
foreclosed
you let it
on.
foreclose and you got the excess proceeds.
And then we went
in a deal like that, what do you make?
That one, I think we only owned like 32% and we ended up getting like $7,500.
Okay.
Or something like that, and we owed that one.
That's better than your first $1,000 wholesale deal.
Yeah. So we made like $7,500 on that one. We had another one that went to litigation because the trustees. It's interesting because they have like a fiduciary they feel like they have a fiduciary responsibility to like the owners,
and it's really to the bank who they represent, not the borrower.
Yeah, and like,
but they want to be extra careful because they have liability.
They have a lot of
not
liability,
not fiduciary, but liability.
And that was a scenario where we bought some interest from an owner and we couldn't, the other side wanted nothing to do with us and the other owners did, and then it got foreclosed on and we went to try to make a claim on that and they're like, well, who are you? And like, how did you get interest? Like, we have a bona fide interest, but with all like the deed fraud and stuff like that, there wasn't a GF number attached to it. So it was like, they called them like naked deeds.
Yeah.
It's like, who are you? So like, we sent all our information over, we sent all this stuff, but the trustee still was like, okay, I get it. I believe you that you own it, but we want to disperse 100% of the excess proceeds at one shot. So they did put it to the court and let the court decide like who's going to do it.
Did you have a lawsuit filed this time?
No, we just made a claim against that, and in the amount, like I think it was like $25,000, and we owned half of it. So I didn't have enough margin to really fight for this thing.
Right.
So I just like interplead. That's what it is. Interplead the proceeds in the court, and basically the court goes through and determines who is the owner, and once the court determines, we can go claim it our piece. And since there wasn't enough money,
the trustees lender wanted to do that. That way he could say the judge determined who to give the money to, not us. We made no legal decisions. The judge did that.
Their liability is too high, their risk is too high, and they're like,
or they believe it's too high.
And that was just that one. But like the other one, it worked just fine. They just like, yep, you're right. Here's the check.
That's the hard part when you're dealing with lawyers, man. If you ask the same question to 10 lawyers, they're going to answer it 10 different ways. And some of them are willing to be reasonable. And some of them say, if there's any probability of risk greater than 0%, I'm not doing it that way.
Yep.
And those are the lawyers that I hate dealing with because they make everything so hard. And while their client is going to be perfectly safe in the end, it makes a transaction so bad that it's more expensive for their client. And frankly, kills a lot of business deals.
Well, I tell people this too about.
And the lawyers get paid by the hour, not by the business deal.
Yeah.
So they really don't give a crap. And many times they forget that they're damaging transactions and damaging parties, but they default to the, I
always say
nobody protected everybody.
Nobody can screw a real estate deal up like a lawyer or a real estate agent. That's what I always say. And then I always say it's about professionals too. It's not your professional's job to tell you how to do your job. It's your job to find a professional that knows how to do what you want them to do.
So that was tough for me early on. I would hire real estate attorneys because I didn't know a lot, and they would tell me what to do or how to do it or how they'd recommend. And because I was just some young, stupid kid who didn't have money or experience, and they were a lawyer that had a bar card and a fancy office, I remember thinking, well, they're telling me what to do. And a couple of years in, I remember thinking, hold on a minute. You're the professional that's offering support to me. I'm paying you by the hour. I'm the businessman, and I disagree with what you're saying. So I'm going to choose how to do this. Thank you for your opinion. And it was this transition of me learning that I'm actually the boss. The lawyer's not the boss. I'm the boss. Thank you for your opinion and your guidance. We're going to do it this way.
Yeah.
And
I
that
think
was a
that's
big shift.
A lot of business owners, like, for lack of a better term right now, they're lazy. They want somebody else to tell them what to do. It's like, no, if you're the business owner, you need to know how to do the 30,000 foot view. And then you find the people in the nitty gritty to go do all the number crunching and all the letters and put all the stuff. Because, the attorneys we use, he's like, you just need my signature that has a bar number underneath it. Y'all tell the strategy.
A lot of folks don't look at it this way. And I don't want to sound condescending, but you have a lot of professional services and trades. So as the business owner, I've got a CPA that helps me a little bit, a lawyer, a plumber, a cleaning crew, and they're all trades to support my decisions.
Yep.
But the one I find that steps out of that boundary the most is the attorneys, because they think they're smarter than you many times. They think they need to drive the bus, and I had to remind myself in the beginning, hold on a minute. He's just like the CPA or the plumber or the cleaning company. They're professional service. I'm the guy driving the bus. I make the decisions.
Yeah. 100%. We saw that with flipping a lot too, and your wholesale and stuff. Like, and I need a good investor-friendly contractor. You need a guy to tell you how to do your job, huh? That's what you needed. Like, it's in every facet of it. It's like, that's what our difference, why we were actually successful at flipping, is like, we drove the bus. I told the contractor what to do. I didn't care what his opinion was. Like, I need you to do this. Here's my scope of work. No, we're not painting that wall. It's fine. Like, I'm not touching that bathroom. It's fine. I can paint over. I know you want to make everything nice and pretty. You don't need to. So it happens in all facets of the industry and in business world. And I'm sure I only know real estate, but I bet it's probably pretty similar in other areas.
It is. So, John, tell me about your absolute worst deal you've ever done.
Oh, worst deal I ever did. I made $140. I spent so much time. It was early on in the days. No, actually, you know what? Worst deal I ever did. Still doing it right now. I Dignity Hill. Everybody told me don't flip or build in Dignity Hill.
And you built the house over there.
Yeah, I built three. I built three of them.
Well, you still own some of that?
No, I don't own it. I'm just still in the lawsuit over the issue.
What's the lawsuit for?
So
with the buyer?
No, with the contractor. So
I remember this.
Yep. So the worst deal I ever did.
Another reason they don't fool with contractors any more than you got to.
And this happened twice. We lost a bunch of money. This one we're still dealing with, and it was the worst deal we ever did. I will always be in the driver's seat for the financing and the operations of any form of building or development.
Didn't you partner with this builder?
We did.
That's
so
where
we
the problem
gave
happened.
up the operation of the actual construction. We were the financing arm. We went and borrowed $1 million to build these 3 houses. And the second we bought that lot, he's like, oh, these are peanut projects. And really what it was, I got in with this dude, and he saw a kid. He's a con artist. Because you can look through the land records, you can see he's done this multiple times. And when I first got in business with him, I didn't know how to use the land records like I do now. Otherwise, I would have never done anything with this stuff. But he saw a young 26-year-old kid that knew how to had enough confidence to raise money from other people and could sell that piece. And he talked big, googly-eyed, and was like, oh, we can do all this stuff. Because I actually I did 5 projects with this guy. And I knew it was all going to roll to these 3 because I saw problems all along the way, but I got into such a position like the only way out is through. And I knew it was all going to roll to these 3 houses in Dignity. So we bought these things in December of 19.
Oh my gosh.
We bought this lot and we were going to do a land condominium and we were going to build 4 houses on this lot. And because
I think I remember questioning this project. I'm like, you sure you want to build? Are you sure you want to build that many houses? Are you sure you want to do it in a historic? And I remember asking you, what would happen if you sold this land right now? Could you make any money right now?
And it was no.
I actually remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you were in Stardust. I remember, like, how do you learn to see, like, is it platted? Like, and I remember asking you, I remember one of your very early webinars you did about, like, how to use, like, land records to find, not land records, the plat records and stuff like that to learn that stuff. Mm-hmm. So, like, all the way back then. So, like, yeah, dude, like 7 years ago, I was still dealing with that situation. So we buy these lots and immediately goes south. Freaking HOA or the neighborhood association just blows up on us and jams us up when we tried to build like 4 houses. Like,
they didn't want more density. They didn't want that many houses on that lot.
And it's like you have the not in my backyard people. Is all the people that had been there forever and fighting change, which is like, I'm sorry, you can only slow it down. The wheels of the wheels of progress are always going to keep rolling. But anyways, we get into that deal, and so we buy this land in December 2020. We didn't sell our final house until summer of 23.
Wow.
And we had debt on it the entire time.
What interest rate?
10%. And
On
we at least
$100,000 a year,
we at
$8,000 a
least
month,
phased it
$7,000.
out to where over that first year, based on his timeline that he was going to take, we phased it out over draws. But yeah, by the time we probably had $1 million drawn, probably for a good 2 years.
So that's a $250,000 in interest, more or less.
And how can you make money doing that? And I saw that I was like, dude,
you probably only had a $250,000 margin.
And when did we list our first house? End of 2022, after rates.
How much did you think you were going to make on this deal?
We thought we were going to make about $250,000.
And you spent that in interest, so that tells me you lost money on it.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're gonna by the time it's all said and done, we're probably gonna lose about $250,000.
So you're exposed to contractor risk. You were exposed to market risk. All those things that could have happened, definitely, and just partnership risk. That's a real thing.
So the deal was with this contractor is, and this is one thing, even if we paper it up, it doesn't and I just talked to this guy last night about a mechanics lien, the power a contractor has with a freaking mechanics lien. The paperwork doesn't matter. He can file it, and then you got to go fight it to remove it.
Could take forever. He can file it in 20 minutes, and you can take years to get it gone.
And that's exactly what happened to us. Our deal was he builds it, we finance it, we split the baby at the end of it. And we got to the very end, and he's like, I got $100,000 in expenses. I want that paid out of the first property. I'm like, you don't get to go before the bank. The bank gets paid back first. And he wanted to get paid back first, essentially sticking me with the entire loss.
So he had you over the barrel.
Well, no, because they weren't justified expenses. But
he still had the leverage to prevent a sale, and you're on the hook for the interest. So he had leverage.
So I sold the first house, got rid of it.
Did you pay him back his $100,000?
No, I wasn't going to pay him because he doesn't owe it. It's like we need to sell all the houses and then split the property.
But he hadn't filed a lien yet.
He hadn't filed a lien yet. And I knew the project was going to lose money, but I needed him to finish because all the stuff was under his name for the licensing and stuff. And so I needed to get it done. So we got it done, and it's like, we'll deal with it afterwards. Because also, we still had a way out. That's why I kept pressing the dude so hard. We need to get this done before rates go through the roof. And they started to. And in that area of town, stopped. Business just stopped. Because we listed our first house.
How much did the first one sell for, and how much did the last one sell for?
First one sold for $450, and it was the smallest unit. The last one sold for $400, and it was 300 square feet larger, way bigger. The market just stopped. We listed
lost
that first
10 to 20% in sales price.
100%. We probably could have broken even on the project if we would have got them listed 6 months beforehand.
So what's going on with the lawsuit with this contractor?
Filed a $100,000 lien against the property. I bonded around it with the two properties so I could still get them sold so I can pay the lender back. And the lender was nice enough because she's been a partner of ours for a long time. It's privately financed. And she's letting us pay back the loan over time. And because she understood the situation, and she's a freaking angel and has a lot of money and is just likes business. But the dude filed the lien and he sold the other houses, but we had to send 150% of the lien amount in the court. So we have $150,000 interpleaded in the court that this dude is bogging up because of his mechanics lien.
Whoa.
And we have done depositions. We have done everything. And the guy and this is the problem, the guy has nothing to lose. So even if I win, I have no recourse. I would get my attorney fees back, $30,000. What am I going to do with somebody that doesn't own anything?
So in your earlier investing career, you just pick anybody who can do the work and seems okay.
Yeah.
But as you start to get some experience, you realize, no, I want someone with assets and some sort of operation. That way I have leverage and recourse if they do bad.
This dude has nothing. And the depositions have been a clown show. The guy can't explain his damage model. He has no documentation. He can't explain anything. And it's just.
So is part of your ask to get the
ask is to go away.
To the lien released?
Yeah, release the lien and release the money back.
Can you file for that now? Can you get a summary hearing?
Because he still has a judgment against the property. So we're going through the process.
He has a judgment against the property.
No, he has the mechanics lien against the property.
Can you get a summary judgment at this point because you think you might have enough evidence?
Well, that's what we're working towards. But now mediation is here in the next couple bits. And it's just dude, I'm not going to pay him anything.
Cancel the mediation? What's the point of that?
I don't know. I'd have to ask Jeff why he wants to do that.
The question I would ask is, why don't you just go get a summary hearing? Because why go spend another $5,000 for mediation? You know it's going to fail. Why don't you just go plead for a summary judgment and see if you can prove to the judge enough to get this thing released as it stands?
And we might actually do that now thinking about it, but we're deposing the corporate rep because they can't explain their damage model. It's like if they don't, it's like now we have all the evidence there that's like they can't explain their own damage model. They have no documentation. They have no nothing.
Right.
Like just release this.
One of the problems I find with attorneys is they have all these ideas and how it's supposed to work, and they want every single process so it's perfect. And sometimes I say, hey, we got 80% of what we need. We might be able to get this anyway. Let's stop spending money on collecting more information, and let's see if a judge will side with us now. You might get there. Is this guy paying for an attorney?
Yeah, I guess. I don't really know how he's paying because like the guy was always broke, and that was the situation why the process took so long. He was robbing Peter to pay Paul, which is why the project took forever. Because he freaking sent his own bank statements to us, proving that he was commingling funds back and forth. It's like, dude,
It's done.
Yeah, it's like
I'm glad you're getting that towards the end. You're probably done with it in a year, maybe.
Yeah, within a year. So like that was the worst deal I ever did, and I'm still fighting with it. And I've shelled out probably 20 grand, 30 grand in attorney fees battling this scumbag because he just filed a lien even though it's unjustified, but they can do that. And that's one reason why like building, I'm kind of like, I don't want to do that anymore because there's just I like this distressed stuff that in 2 months we can make 100 grand or even 20 grand.
So now that you're doing distressed real estate, you're more in the driver's seat. And in the old model, sellers had more control, contractors had more control.
More power.
Yeah, one of the reasons I like the distressed model is you have the ability to affect it more. And it's, frankly, it's kinder to the operator.
It is. And then we also have to understand, like, we have more leverage. And another reason why, like, the morality of the low offers kind of piece, because all of that stuff can happen. But I need the margin in the deal to get to the end. If it's too narrow, I can't afford an attorney at $350 an hour. And I know I'm going to spend 10 hours like just getting through like some of the affidavit of heirship stuff because it's so big. Like I have to assess all of that risk up front and have to bake it into my offer, anticipating all of the stuff that could go wrong. Might not. Some of it will, some of it won't. Very rarely does it sail through untouched. More times there's something wrong with it. So like that comes back to the piece of like we have to take all that anticipation. So it's more favorable to the operator because we know and we can anticipate those things.
Right.
And we have the margin to use all the guns and all the tools in our tool belt to make deals work.
So what's business look like going forward? What kind of goals do you have? Are there any big changes that you foresee in the next year or two in your business that you're planning?
We're sticking with the mortgage foreclosure, and what we're really focusing on now is the tax delinquency piece. Tax delinquency and tax foreclosure. Is
what
like,
tax delinquency also?
Just because we know that's what we're working on tailoring, because like we know all tax foreclosures end up being a tax delinquency. They have to be. They're delinquent in taxes. Like
that's how they get there.
That's how they get there. So all the problems we run into with tax foreclosures were the ones that we're looking for. The problems were there at the start of the delinquency. But
so you're going to the source, basically.
Yeah, basically. But you start with a list this big in delinquency, and the foreclosure gets it down to this bit. But there's the piece we're running into a lot there is like we were talking about. There's a lot more options that people in tax foreclosure have to get out of it or massively postpone it versus mortgage. So we're staying with the mortgage because it does generate good revenue. You have a lot more competition. The tax foreclosure is not as much competition, but you have a lot more options the sellers have. So it's narrowing down that avatar of the initial distress that we're looking for that we're going to go after. And that's really what we've been focusing on for several months and can continue to focus on is narrowing that down. Because mortgage, we got that. We're trying to expand toward the tax delinquency, tax foreclosure piece, looking for that true distressed owner that we were talking about earlier.
Got it. So if you were to go back, and I think your business has changed radically in the last 5 years.
Yes.
More
last
so,
five, like
more
last
so
three.
The last three. But if you were to go back and talk to the John Barr 5 years ago, what would you tell John 5 years ago?
Start doing distressed real estate. Man, I sit here today because of the things I did back then. I don't know if I would have gotten here if I would have changed anything I did back then. Because I started young, I took the risk, I swiped the cards. I could tell people, I could say don't get into as much debt. I might say probably one of the things I would say never do a deal that you're not in control of the finance and the operations of.
Big lesson.
Don't listen to other people's expertise because they know better and understand. I was that gullible kid from Kansas. I learned a lot of lessons, very hard, very expensive ways, undoing some of that prior programming.
Yeah.
So it's don't trust everything people say at their word. Like, trust but verify. I didn't verify. I just trusted, and it's cost me a lot of money.
We're the other way around. I actually don't trust anybody until they prove to me that I should trust them. And folks say, that's quite skeptical. And I say, it is.
It's probably a better way to say it. It's just like, I don't trust you, but like once you prove that you can do those things, it would have saved me so much time, headache, sleepless nights, dealing with these lawsuits and dirtbag contractors, over-promising, under-delivering. They're notorious for it. But there are, not to crap on contractors, there are good ones out there, but you need to know, they need to do what you tell them to do. You don't do what they tell you to do.
Right.
You need to know what to be in the driver's seat, especially if you're the one with the financing on the hook. So
what do you tell folks that are out there listening that are interested in distressed real estate and want to make their way towards it?
I tell people, like any form of real estate, like partner with somebody. Like that's how I got to where I'm at. Like I partnered along the way with a ton of people. I partnered with you. I partnered with that first contractor for $50,000. I partnered with somebody to help me get out of my W-2. Like I partner with everybody, and don't focus on the money. If they have the expertise, they want the lion's share of it, let them have it and learn from those people. Don't care about the money, because if you're getting into the money, you're going to learn to hate this industry very quickly, because it makes a lot of money, but like you gotta be in it for more than just that. And most people get into this industry, and why I think this industry has such high turnover is people get into it for the wrong reasons. They chase the money. And that is what I would tell people, is like partner with somebody and don't focus on the money. Don't get greedy up front. Because I can tell you the number of wholesalers I try to buy a deal from, and we would try to educate them, and they would just, no, you owe me my money. You need to pay the closing cost. You need to do all this stuff. It's like, you'll be out in 6 months. And sure enough, 6 months later, I'd never hear from them again. Right. And it's just like, because they were in it for the money and not for the experience and the knowledge that somebody like myself or yourself has. It's like, dude, I don't care. Like, I'm not in it for the money. If I make money, great. I want the knowledge, because I can use that knowledge to make money.
Very good. So everybody out there listening, they want to get a hold of you, get to know you, send you some deals, whatever. Where do they find you?
So I have a problem with addiction to cell phone, like reels and stuff. So I have no social media on my phone. I can't. It gets too distracting for me. They can go to my Instagram. Like it's just JT Bar 22, I think. I don't know my handle. But you can go through there, or you can just actually go to john@primehomes.com, JOHN@PRYMEHOMES. Like, little old school that way. Send me an email, like I'm your grandpa. But yeah, I am on Facebook. I am on Instagram, but like I only check those like once or twice a week for those, just because like it's just too distracting for me. I can't have it on my phone. I'll just spend hours. When I was seeing that I was spending like 10 hours on Instagram and not posting anything, I was like, this has got to go from my phone. Like I saw this got to go. So easiest, quickest way to get a hold of me is email at john@primehomes.com, because it is also a little bit of a barrier of entry, because I'm sure you see it with the amount of DMs and stuff you get from a lot of people. It's like, if you really want to hold of me, like send me an email.
Well, John, I appreciate you being here with us today. Everybody learns a little bit of different things from each of our guests, and there's a lot they can learn about your journey from standard real estate into distressed, and those big lessons from contractor to market risk to just financing. So thanks for sharing all that with us today. I appreciate it.
I appreciate it, man. I owe a lot to you. So if you're more than happy to be in here to do this.
Very good. My commitment to you is to deliver the most interesting, messy, and profitable real estate deals on earth. And in exchange for that, I only ask that you subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend who can benefit.